Morning, everybody. My name is Dan Skoda. I see most everybody here I'm familiar with, so y'all know me. On behalf of Your Not Alone Ministry, we want to thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to learn about mental health and your family's role in support, and more about an aspect of mental health. Today we'll be learning about Grafton Integrated Health, explanations about autism, how to improve communications, as well as strategies and resources. First, let's pray together. Father God, thank you for bringing Tania to us today. Thank you for safety in her travels. We pray for her voice. We pray for her presentation, and we thank you that she could come here and speak to us about this important topic, because it, like others, affects families and caregivers, and how we speak your love and your truth to the people that we love in our lives. So help us to be better at doing that. Help us to grow into stronger, more equipped caregivers through Tania's presentation. We are so grateful. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hi.
Our disclaimer: this program is not intended to provide guidance or direction in seeking medical assistance, direction, or medications. Referrals and medical assistance should only be sought from your individual physician or a component expert. So I'm going to introduce Tania. I'll try not to read too much, but this is impressive, Tania. She holds both Tania Silva has a bachelor's and a master's degree in social work from West Virginia University. She became a licensed clinical social worker in 2004, and for almost 25 years, Tania's been working in the mental health field with a true passion for others. Throughout her career, Tania has worked in both outpatient and inpatient settings, providing service and clinical supervision. In March of 2020, Tania began her employment with Grafton Integrated Health as a program clinician and was promoted to clinical administrator in July of 2024. Tania's energetic, obviously, because she runs and does triathlons. A very motivated triathlete. Enjoys spending time with her husband, Trent, and up until a little bit recently, the late Miss Lady.
Yes.
So Tania's grieving a wonderful pet, and so I said, hence the name of the ministry, You're Not Alone. That's a tough thing, and she's still loving on Fozzie Boy.
Fozzie Boy, yes.
Welcome, Tania.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Woo, you guys are a good crowd. All right, so again, my name is Tania, and I just want to begin by saying thank you for being here. This is super exciting. To be able to share some of the knowledge that I can bring to you guys, but also just to connect, because it sounds like this is something that you guys, put a lot of energy and effort into, of connecting communities and sharing resources and so forth. So my goal today is to really give you guys some things to put in your toolbox to improve your knowledge about specifically autism. And then most recently, I was asked to throw some stuff about ADHD in there, which actually was pretty easy to do because they do very often go hand in hand. So we'll talk about that. But again, thank you so much for having me. Before I get into my slide, I do want to say that I have ADHD. So with that being said, I'm much older now and I've been able to manage it. But at times I could become a little, and go here, go there. I don't sit still very easily, so I move around a lot. So at any point in time, if you have a question or I'm making you dizzy because I'm moving around, or I'm talking stuff and you're like, what is she saying? Just let me know, okay? I won't take offense to it. Like I said, I'm used to it. So we'll get started, all right? And also very informal. So anything you see here that you want to speak about, just jump right in and let me know, okay? Those that have just joined, I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to have, I'm not sure you have one of these. We'll speak more specifically about this.
The case that can't stop, did you?
Exactly. Now, I know a lot of you, there's always one or two that want to start hitting people with it and everything. So, I won't tell. I already saw them. I'm keeping an eye on them. Yep. Oh, back scratcher. That's new. Okay. All right. But yes, this is a fidget, okay? This is an example of a fidget, yep. And so I probably will hold this as well. It really helps to kind of tame the brain, right? Calm the brain and allow us to be able to focus a little bit better. And we'll talk a little bit more about kind of how these are helpful and some other ideas about this. So, all right, so moving forward, this is kind of what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk, I'll begin by talking about Grafton because I am representing Grafton today. We'll talk about autism, we'll talk about ADHD, talk about how they overlap. And then we're going to get into kind of, okay, so we're working or we have family members with autism or ADHD. How do you communicate, right? How do you help them get their needs and wants met? Okay, and then we'll get into some of the strategies and the tools that can go into your toolbox, and then we'll wrap it up. I know I don't have too much time today, so again, if I talk too fast, tell me to slow down, all right? All right, so this is Meet Grafton. So raise of hands, who has heard of Grafton? Okay, most people have, and for the most part, most people are very familiar with right off of Route 7. And it's got that big, I think, 16-foot fence out front, right? Usually when I talk about Grafton, I ask people what do they think, and they're like, oh, those are the bad kids, right? And that saddens me, right? Because they're not necessarily bad. It's behaviors, right? The behaviors that are challenging. So this actually is the picture, that is the location in Berryville, which is on Route 7, okay? We also have locations in Winchester, which is where I work. That is right off of Bellevue Avenue. That is actually a school, okay? It does have a fence outside, not nearly as high as the other one. But this is a school where kids that reside in homes, even in as far as West Virginia or Loudoun County, they get bused into our program so they can get their educational needs met. Also in Winchester, we have group homes. So right now I oversee 8 child and adolescent group homes that are embedded into the city of Winchester. You would not know that they're Grafton unless you might see a van parked out front and maybe some dents on the side of the van or things like that that might give us away a little bit. Okay. But in general, you know, we are embedded. We want our kids and our adolescents to feel that they're living in a community, right? We also have 12 adult group homes that are also embedded in Winchester as well. Those individuals mostly participate in a day program, and some also have jobs out in the community as well. So that's Winchester for you. Richmond, we have a program in Winchester. It kind of looks very much like the school that I'm talking about here in Winchester. Minnesota is actually very similar to the one on Berryville. Okay, that program in Berryville is what we call a PRT, a residential treatment center. Okay, again, this is not the bad kids, all right, but these are what we call more like neurotypical kids. So these kids have average IQ levels, okay, and they also suffer with mental illness such as depression, anxiety, bipolar, things like that. Okay. In Winchester, where I work, all of our clients have what we call an intellectual disability. So all of them meet the criteria of having an intellectual disability, which may be like a lower IQ level, right? And or they have autism. Okay, so at Berryville, you're not going to see a lot of autistic kids there, per se. I mean, they maybe some, but you're going to see more of the mental health challenges, okay, the specific depression, anxiety, those sorts of things. And then lastly, infant and toddler. A lot of people don't know this, but we have a huge program that spans across the state of Virginia. We have over 450 families right now that are enrolled. That number is probably higher than that now. And these are for individuals, infants that meet the criteria. Maybe they are not meeting developmental milestones on time. So maybe they're just starting to show some signs that there may be some challenges or some troubles ahead. So early intervention. Yes, sir.
The program in Berryville is residential?
Yes, the program in Berryville is residential. Those kids live there, okay? And they will live there for, the goal is to be as minimal as possible, but they can be there upwards of a year or so. Okay. They also serve kids there that are from the Department of Juvenile Services as well. Keep them coming. Yep. Yep.
And I know I've been to meetings at the building in Winchester off the
Bellevue Avenue. Mm-hmm.
You said that's a school?
That is a school.
And so they come to school and they go home?
Yep. Yep. So we have we have buses that will bus the children in, and then our group homes each have vans. So the vans come in the morning, and we have 12 different classrooms. All of those kids have what's called an individualized education plan. For short, it's called an IEP. So these are kids that really just might need some extra support getting their academic needs met. Okay, so, but again, in Winchester where I work, and for the population we're going to talk about today, many of our kids have autism and ADHD. And so with that being said, there are significant challenges with getting their own needs or their just basic wants met. And Grafton's been around since 1958. All right, so it started with a woman by the name of Ruth Birch. She had a child that had some challenges learning, and the school couldn't do it. So she started her own little schoolhouse, started to gain popularity. I believe that building is still in existence over in Berryville. But, you know, the word got out, hey, there's other ways to teach individuals that have intellectual challenges. And so it just grew from there. So we continue to expand. All right, so who do we serve? I think I mentioned some of this, but autism, speech and language, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorders, okay? A lot of people, when they hear that, they think about washing their hands all the time, right? Actually, the ritualistic kind of behaviors and things also go hand in hand with autism spectrum, and we'll talk about that too. And then we also have individuals with, Down syndrome and some other medical disorders, seizure disorders, things like that. All right. I'd like to share this real quick. This is the foundational care model that Grafton employees utilize when they come to work. I share this because I really feel like all of these things apply to each and every one of us in this room with everything we do every day. Okay? So, first and foremost, use the community as a classroom. Look what we're doing right now, right? This is exactly the example of that, right? Bringing in resources, making those connections. Teach, okay? If you know something, teach it, right? Share that knowledge. Share those experiences. Assume trauma, all right? Has everybody heard of the term trauma-informed care? Okay? I like to think of it as it's kind of like putting on your trauma lens, like your glasses, and when you look at things through a trauma lens, you're going to assume that something may have happened to that person, okay? I can probably bet that everybody in this room has endured some level of trauma, something that has evoked, emotional disturbance, okay? Maybe some physical challenges, right? Trauma is everywhere. So when we look through a trauma lens, we're a little bit more sensitive, right? We're not looking at just the behavior. We're going, oh, wait a second. What happened to this person? Why are they acting like this? Adds that piece of empathy as well. This is my favorite, be a behavior detective. Like I said, kids with autism and ADHD, they come with lots of behaviors. Some of them are not nice. They're not. And some of them can be highly aggressive, okay? Some of them result in, having to call law enforcement because they get so intense, okay? But when we are a behavior detective, we're not just looking at the behavior like, oh, Johnny keeps coming over me and punching me, okay? That looks like Johnny's mad at me. What if Johnny doesn't have words and is nonverbal, but he's hungry and he's trying to tell me, but he doesn't have words, right? So when we're a behavior detective, we're not just looking at the behavior and making assumptions. Oh, he's just being bad. He's just being aggressive. He's trying to tell you something, because that behavior is the communication. Okay? And then finally, be kind. All right? Again, the behaviors that we work with each and every day, maybe in your own households, out in the community, maybe even in church, that, families come in and they bring individuals that have challenging behaviors. Sometimes it's hard to be kind, right? Because the behavior seems so aggressive, so mean, right? But focusing on being kind is what's going to be most helpful.
I know in my therapy practice, two things. I simply encourage them to see giant floated hospital. And to speak to kindness, I pray that we have a kindness pandemic.
That'd be great.
We live
Yeah.
in a world, right? Yeah. I live in a world and in a time when there's so much hostility.
100%, sir. Absolutely. And it makes it hard to be kind, right? Because there's so much anger and there's so much, frustration that, I know for myself, sometimes I have to remind myself that what I'm looking at isn't about me, right? I have to remember to be kind and manage my own emotions and not play into what maybe somebody or people are trying to get you to feel. Okay. This is the last piece about Grafton. Yukiru. It means to receive. So, like I said, I've been in the field for over 25 years. I am not proud of this, but back in the day, mental health days, in the hospital setting, we restrained people, okay? If you were aggressive, we did what we call takedowns. We did restraints. We held kids. I held little kids screaming for mommy. I held adolescents. I've held adults for way too long. It's what we did. We also had quiet rooms. You're not behaving, you're going to go in this room, we're going to close this door and keep you in there until you calm down. How'd that work? It didn't, right? You're not behaving, I'm going to restrain you. How does that work? I don't know about you guys, but if somebody grabs a hold of you, no, right? It doesn't feel good. That's where mental health was, okay? Fast forward to where we are now, and actually in 2004, Grafton developed this program. These are what we call blocking pads. If you come to the school in Winchester, you will see these everywhere, mounted on the wall, in the classrooms, in our vans, okay? So in essence, some people call them punching bags, okay? But they are to maintain safety. So if a child is aggressing on me, I don't know what they want. Rather than me getting hurt and them potentially getting hurt, I'm going to grab a blocking pad and I'm going to use that to protect myself and to protect that child, okay? If a child is upset and is head banging against the wall, which a lot of our kids will do, I can take one of these small pads and put it right behind and say, hey, Johnny, I'm right here. I got you. You're safe, okay? But again, 15 years ago, I'm taking you up because I'm not going to let you hurt yourself, right? Different way of thinking. So Winchester, we do not restrain anybody. Now, there are times where it gets really, really difficult, and we do have to call law enforcement, okay? And unfortunately, there are times where law enforcement has to get involved. Berryville, the location over there, they are also working very hard. Their restraints have gone down significantly. They do have the ability to restrain as a last resort. I don't have the exact numbers, but it's pretty darn impressive. We are getting to a place now that the idea of restraint and seclusion is becoming something of the past. And I hope we just continue in that momentum. So I just wanted to share that because it's something I'm really, really proud of just kind of, watching that mental health wave over the years. All right, so what causes autism and ADHD? Yep, exactly. Yep, guys, look, I wish I could come here and say, hey, I have the answer, right? No, there's not one single cause, okay? There are things that what we call like correlations, right? There might be something that this tends to be a factor and tied with autism, but it doesn't mean it caused it, okay? So right now, the only things that we can come up with or that are that are discussed about are that they tend to be linked to both genetic and environmental factors. That's as far as I can go to provide to you guys for causes. And again, it's very difficult. Science is amazing. I know that there's a lot of science going on there, but that is kind of where we're at. The environmental factors, especially during fetal development, right? Preterm birth, low birth weight, certain exposures, those have been linked to autism and ADHD. Doesn't mean it caused it, right? I talk about the developmental period because, you know, when in utero, right, if a mother is subjected to maybe physical abuse or trauma, that can cause trauma to the fetus, right? And that has also been linked to things like autism and ADHD. But again, I'm not here to tell you what causes what, okay? So it's going to be something that's very complex, and we're going to continue to learn more and more and more. There are going to be people that are going to think they figured it out, and so forth, and we won't get into that. But there are links to anything, right? All right. So autism and ADHD, they are called developmental disorders, sometimes neurodevelopmental. Neuro meaning the brain. The developmental part means these diagnoses emerged during the developmental period of life. So I found this diagram here. So you see infancy. I wish it had one more before that, in utero. Okay, and I couldn't find a good one the other day. But so it starts in utero, and these early stages of life, infancy, early toddler, preschool, these are the times where a child learns to connect. It learns emotional regulation, okay? If a child doesn't have that at an early age, right, they may pick up some different symptoms for later on in life and maybe be challenged with having relationships. They don't know how to bond with somebody. They don't trust anybody. Okay. I always like to think about that scenario with the orphanage, right? Like, unfortunately, there are still orphanages out there, but you think about the long line of babies, right? And the two nurses come in and they're all crying because they all need changed. You can't do it all at the same time, right? So you start with baby number one. Okay, the last baby is crying the whole time, right? So what did they learn? They learned that I'm going to sit here and cry and nobody's really coming, like for a while. So crying, which is one of the first means of communication that an infant has to tell you, I need something, I want something, that goes away. Okay? So, you know, that's why we talk about, you know, the impact of development for children and why it is so important for the caretakers to connect with an infant, okay? To connect, to create that balance. Right now, I work with a lot of kids that have what we call attachment disorder. And if you go digging back, they had inconsistency in parenting. They didn't have the love and the connection and all of that was not there consistently. They were neglected. You know, all of those things that come into play. So I'm not necessarily saying those things cause or are related to autism or ADHD, but what I'm saying is the developmental period is so critical, okay? And when we're looking at autism and ADHD, those things will be prevalent. You will see those symptoms and characteristics during these phases. That is why in order to be diagnosed with autism or ADHD, these symptoms need to have occurred during these years. You guys remember I said I was diagnosed with ADHD, right? I wasn't diagnosed till I was in college. But guess what the questionnaire was? It was all about me when I was a little kid, before age 7, right? And it was so funny because I thought back, like, all of my report cards, all of them. Tania's such a pleasure to have in the classroom, but Tania doesn't know how to keep her hands to herself. Tania constantly talks out of turn. Tania can't sit in her seat, right? And my grades were just right there, right? And back in then day, nobody was hearing anything about ADHD. Mom and dad took care of it at home, and we won't get into that. But so I worked it out, right? You know, and we work through it. But yeah, so developmental disorders. So I want you to think about that with autism and ADHD. They're both developmental disorders. They occur during that developmental time. Love this picture here. What stands out with this picture here of these 3 young children? Yep, eye contact. Okay, this one doesn't have any, right? Okay. What else stands out?
Small and good.
Yep,
Nappy.
yep. If I took this away, would you know that they have autism?
Nope.
No. Right? Would you know that they probably have ADHD? No. Right? Autism and ADHD don't often come with any kind of physical ailments.
DD.
There's not a big sign on the forehead that says I have autism, right? So this I thought was really, really interesting to me because it just shows that autism looks so different, and that's why we call it a spectrum. Okay? Because, you know, there's a saying, when you meet one person with autism, you meet one person with autism. Okay? And they're never the same. Now, they might, oh my gosh, you know, I agree with it. But at the end of the day, you meet one person, right? Another characteristic here that you may notice here is that they're all boys. Okay? I picked this picture because there is a higher prevalence of boys being diagnosed with both autism and ADHD at a higher rate. There are reasons for that, and I'm not going to go too in detail of that, but it is, I think it's like a 12% boys versus 6% to girls, something like that. So I thought that that was interesting. And then just over here, just for anybody that's interested, when you're diagnosing autism, these are the 3 main criteria. Persistent deficits in social communication and interaction. Again, back to, and you'll hear me say it 1,000 times, how do they get their needs and wants met? If I'm thirsty right now, I can say, may I get some water? Right? I get it. Okay? If I don't have words, how do I do that? Okay? Restricted or repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities. This one's very interesting. This may look like your child, your toddler, is lining up all of their cars in a perfect row, right? I have a client right now, he's an older adolescent, but he loves action figures. So when I come to the group home, all the time in his bedroom, he's got them lined up every day. There's like 10 of them. And they're lined up from head to toe, perfect, okay? So one day I was looking at him and I said, hey, you know, I said, oh, can I see that? I picked it. I know, everybody's like, oh, right? I got the bruises now. So I pick it up, and you should have seen, he's looking at me, because he's nonverbal. And I said, this is so cool. Is this Spider-Man? And he's, But you could see his whole world was completely like, you better put that back down, and it needs to go right there. So what do? Tanya, I put it down, but I make sure that it's just about a head up. I wanted to see. And because with that, we are working on what's to help individuals be, more socially productive, flexible. Yes, that's the perfect word. So he probably stared at that for about 45 seconds before he got up and moved it back in place. So yeah, but yeah, so that's an example of some of those things that you might see very early, okay? And then again, finally, what I just shared with you guys, the onset happens within that developmental period, okay? You're not going to go through normal development, everything's fine, and then you're 22 and all of a sudden you wake up and you have autism. It's not gonna happen, okay? You're gonna have to go back and you're gonna see there were a lot of other things that were happening in the developmental period. All right, so some of the common characteristics, neurological developmental, we talked about that. Characteristics in verbal and nonverbal communication, social skills. All right, I love this one. Hyper and hypo-reactive to sensory input. Okay, so this might be, that young man, like I said, he was an adolescent, so he's learned. But I have a nephew who, when he was very young, he was showing me dinosaurs, and he was like, and this one is such and such, and he puts it down, and this one is such and such. And I reached into the toy box, and I was like, which one's this? He flipped out. tears, I mean, everything. And I was like, what in the, immediate was an indication. I disrupted his world. He had a hyper sensory response to that. His brain went, no, I'm showing you the order of the dinosaurs out of my toy box. That one wasn't next. And then when I put it back, and this one, he right back to his story. Okay. So that just shows that rigid thinking, right? Hypo is actually a little bit different. This is for some of our kids that the brain may not have that connection with, oh, I'm thirsty. Oh, I have to go to the bathroom. Okay? That's that disconnect with the brain and the body that also is seen very often with autism. Like I said, either hyper or hypo. Has anybody ever driven in a rainstorm and they lower the radio so that you can see better?
Yeah.
Right?
Or the sensory.
Yep, you are lowering that sensory input. You are looking at signs. Yes, sir.
Driving in heavy traffic.
100%, right? Because you're looking at that, you're looking in the mirror, you're looking over here, you know, you might have somebody in the back seat, like, are we there yet? Like, you got stuff going on, right? And the music is one thing that we have the ability in this room to control. The challenge with individuals with autism, that would be a challenge. They don't have that ability or may not have that ability to turn that radio down. So then it becomes chaos, right? Then you start to see this reaction, this, oh my gosh, my brain feels like it's going to explode. And then we see the behaviors, right? Hangry, I talk about hangry. Everybody's been hangry, right? Yeah, okay. So, and you can tell somebody, I'm really hungry and I'm angry right now. You know, you can explain yourself why you might be agitated or irritable. What about the kid that has no words and he's hangry and he starts acting out aggressively and you give him a toy? Because you're like, oh, maybe Johnny needs a toy here. That's not what he wants. He's hungry, right? Another example is we have a young lady who, when she gets upset, one of her behaviors is she disrobes. A lot of our kids are just like, because the sensory overload, right? They just want to remove everything. So she kept doing this out in a public area at the school, and staff were around her and they just keep putting her clothes back on and she's trying to pull it off, and it's just like this chaos. And one of our behavior technicians came over and looked at her and went like this and gave her her hand. She grabbed her hand and pulled her, and where did she take her? To the bathroom. They had spent 15 minutes trying to put her clothes back on because they were looking at the behavior and not being a behavior detective. Okay? So they were focused on that, and here she is, all she had to do was go to the bathroom. Right? So that's just kind of that example, right? Because that challenge, I'm trying to tell you something. I need to do something, but I don't know how to tell you. And here in a little bit, I'll show you some of the ways that we're teaching our kiddos to do that. Obsessive or perseverative thoughts. This is huge. A lot of our kids with autism will know everything about something. So my nephew about the dinosaurs, he knows everything. Everything. They can sit and memorize. I mean, it doesn't mean their IQ is low, okay? You can have a high IQ and still have autism, okay? It just becomes a little socially awkward when they try to make friends. Because like, hey, I want to talk about do you know there's 1,100 species of such and such? And then the other kids are like, that's not cool. Like, I don't want to talk to you, right? You're talking about things I don't want to talk about. So socially, it becomes a challenge. Has anybody heard of the word stemming? Okay. Anybody STEM here? All right, what's an example of stemming?
This.
Yep. Yep.
And the bus and
Yep. Anybody like to rock? Yep. The foot moving, right? So that's called stemming. A lot of kids, so when we talked about earlier and we saw the picture of the boys, and I said there's really not many physical characteristics that show that they may have autism, there are behaviors that may demonstrate that they may have autism. So you may see somebody come into the church or something and they sit and they just kind of rock like this repeatedly for the whole, service.
Fun.
That's called stemming. That is their way of turning the radio down. Okay, that is the way of calming everything so that way they can do whatever it is that they're expected to be doing at that moment. Okay, so, and that is why we have these too, right? Because it just kind of helps you just kind of refocus the brain a little bit, gives your hands something to do, kind of categorizes things a little differently in the brain, makes us feel better, gets that itch in the back, right? So,
I was having trouble reading the four color things around the brain.
yes, so this is just another illustration. It says just so autism here, impaired social interaction. So they've challenged socially, repetitive behavior, restricted range of interest, which I have over there, and delayed or disordered language. So this is where some of our kids, a lot of our kids I work with are nonverbal or semi-verbal.
You need
One thing that is really sad, though, that does happen, unfortunately, in the developmental period is there are circumstances where a child will go through normal development, get potty trained, mama, daddy, start talking, and then all of a sudden, they lose the words. They're not potty trained anymore. That's probably one of the hardest scenarios or cases that a lot of families have to deal with. It's not always like that, but it does happen. Yes, sir. Flapping. Yep, flapping, 100%. And a lot of them will always have something in their hands, right, to occupy themselves. Just feels really, really good. Okay? So just an indicator. It's a behavior. It's an indicator, right? Avoidance of eye contact. This used to be one of the early signs, right, as a baby. If they didn't look at you, they had autism, right? So nowadays, because of early intervention and because of our awareness, you're going to find a lot more people, the eye thing isn't as prevalent as it used to be. But what you might find is the social awkwardness. So they may come right up to you, like right up to you. Hi, right? Hello, because that's part of the training. They've been taught when you talk to somebody, you make eye contact, right? But then there's this awkwardness, like I'm gonna get real close to you. You see my eyes? Can you say hello? So sometimes you'll get that too. So just be mindful of that. That's part of that training piece that they're learning. So when we take our kids out in the public and we help them like go to McDonald's and place an order, we teach them those things. Okay, we have a bubble. Let's leave some space. Okay, can you point to what you want? Those sorts of things. Johnny, can you look at what you want? Thank you. Good job. Right? So we're teaching them those things. All right. Let's see if this works. Yay! I love this video.
We are all different. And that's wonderful. Some differences are interesting. Eye, hairstyle, eye color, and so on. Other differences can't be stated up there stone. Or special skill. Interestingly, the way we see the world is also different. For instance, what do you see in this drawing? Most people see it. But some people might just see it around. Whenever you fall, you are correct. It's just a picture to show you that all brains work differently. The brain is your body's computer. It works differently for all of us and controls how you learn. That's why we are all very different from how you feel, which is why we all feel different. And how you communicate. Sometimes the brain is connected in such a way that it affects its tendencies and how we perceive and read situations and interpret is This is as sport. Many people have borders, so it's likely you already know someone called this autistic. Did I go this reading? It's useful to know a little bit about autism. The special wiring inside an autistic brain can sometimes make a person good at tasks we may find difficult. That's what mathematics, color, or music. It can also do the opposite. And activities we find too easy are incredibly difficult to do. such as native print, Silva. The stance is constantly send information to your brain about your surroundings and other beings. However, when a person's brain and its senses don't get well, the brain can become overwhelmed and used, affecting how they see your workings. So to make sure yourself walking your best way. This is how an autistic brain is made experience for term called black philosophy. The cat is scared from this. Sadly, in many cases, the person can't say out loud how they feel. So even though there's chaos going on in their head, they seem okay from the outside, unable to ask for help. We all develop behaviors to help us feel calm in uncomfortable situations. We may look away from ourselves shortly, but I don't hate someone. Equally, autistic people will develop behaviors.
Is you flapping?
It is because intentional. These actions may seem unusual, but they're just their way to feel calm. When they happen, it means they are having a hard time. The kind thing to do is not to give them an even harder time by getting cross, ignoring, or harm. Remember, just because a PlayStation can't even Xbox set, it has seen it broken. But when older, friends who are willing to take the time, with good communication and plenty of patience, everyone will be better off. People with autism, ill or broken, they simply have a unique view of the world too. And with a little support from their friends, they might just become full with arts. Autism can make amazing things.
Pretty cool, huh? I thought that was a really good video. I thought it really illustrated kind of what we just talked about and just kind of put it all together. So now I'm going to move into the ADHD part, right? Because I want to make sure I get all this content out to you guys. And I also want to say, if anybody would like a copy of the slideshow, I will take email addresses and then I can get them out to you guys, or I'll probably maybe scan something to you and then you can hand them out. That way you have these slides for future. So let's go into ADHD. ADHD types, you have hyperactive. Woo, that was me. Inattentive, often lost in thoughts, forgets things. Interesting how they have a young lady here versus a boy. That's one of the things that they talk about, that girls tend to be more inattentive because they tend to be just more quiet and more passive. So they're like, they kind of get overlooked. But, Johnny over here, who's jumping up on desks and can't sit still and biting people and everything, is the one that gets, most diagnosed. And then you have the combined, which can have pieces of both, okay? Some of those symptoms that you might see with ADHD is, the risky behavior, which you're already going to see anyway because they're kids. Difficulty sitting still, daydreaming, excessive talking, disorganization, forgetfulness, carelessness. Okay? Trouble getting along. They don't play well in the sandbox all the time. Yes.
It's a good place to ask a question about differences between boys and girls real quick.
You can ask. I can do my best to see if I can answer.
Okay, so 4 daughters, so hashtag girl dad.
Yep.
But boys, is there a point with boys where we say first, do we ever say first, they're more of a kinesthetic learner. They need to play more. They need to be up and about more. They need to stand more. They need to be outside more before we go down to some type of diagnosis?
So again, when you're diagnosing, you're going to look at the symptoms and behaviors, and it has to be one of the biggest pieces, the factors for diagnosing is it has to happen and occur in all settings. So if you have Johnny that's at school and is acting up, but when he's home and he's attentive and he's fine, that's behavioral, right? But if Johnny really, really is struggling, it doesn't matter where you take him, he cannot sit still, right? That is indicative of meeting that diagnostic criteria. So you got to be very careful, like I said, when you go to diagnose. with boys tending to be more active, again, it seems to be more prevalent. People see it more often. But yes, our ADHD kids, get them out there. Go play. It's energy. So, you know, if you have excessive energy in your body and in your brain, the best thing to do is to expel that. Because if you don't expel it physically, it's coming out somehow, right? That's probably why I do endurance, races and things. Because it does. It in a weird way, it allows my brain to kind of calm out. So I really always challenge people before you go for the diagnosis, address the behavior. Is the behavior happening across all environments? And is it impeding on their ability to learn, right? Because if they're not doing well in school and you're seeing the falling grades and things like that, it may be something to think about. Because that's when we look at the ADHD part and getting a true diagnosis, then it goes right back to that neuro piece that I was talking about, the connection between the brain and the body and the environment. So that is where some of the treatments come into play to help slow some of those things down. So a hyperactive brain is like the California highway, right? Like cars going all over the place, right? Woo, and medication and treatment and things will kind of just create a traffic flow, slow things down a little bit, help things up, okay? So does that somewhat answer the question? Okay. All right, so this is the overlap. So let's go back to, the blue is ADHD. So they have trouble focusing with attention. They desire new stimulation, new activities. They can be forgetful, excessive movement, energy. This is kind of like your typical ADHD kid. All right, let's go back to your autistic kid. Typical desire for routine and familiarity. Okay, kids with autism need that. If, like I said, when you change out the routine or you change out what's supposed to happen next, you better be ready to get what you're going to get, right? So that is why, like at our school, we are highly structured. The kids know what to expect, right? We're going to really rarely try to throw any kind of changes in there. If they have a doctor's appointment, we will prepare them for the doctor's appointment instead of just saying, oh, Johnny, you have a doctor's appointment, let's go today. Johnny's probably not going to go. Right? It's going to be a difficult task. Sensitivity to sensory inputs like sounds and lights. Kids with ADHD and like the hyperactive part might go towards that. They might create more chaos and more sounds and lights and things, right? And then difficulty understanding different viewpoints. So autism. Let's go in the middle. These are the commonalities. Impulse control tends to be something that you see quite often with individuals that have both ADHD and autism. And this is the big one, regulating emotions. Okay, we're all older adults here. We still struggle regulating our emotions, don't we? Right? And our brains are fully developed, so they say. Okay? Kids, their brain isn't fully developed. And if you throw on top of that, there's also some things that just maybe aren't snapping the right way or interpreting the world differently than you or I would. If a fire alarm goes off right now, there's going to be a little sense of like, uh-oh, right? But we're going to know to get up and go and get in line and get out of the building, right? For an individual that wasn't prepared for that, that might freak them out like completely. And there might be a full-blown meltdown where we might have to physically carry them out because they won't know what to do, maybe frozen in just fear and chaos, okay? So regulating those emotions. Oh, this is a situation where I'm supposed to stay calm and I'm going to walk out the building and listen, follow the fire drill, as an example. And then reading social cues. So again, Tania doesn't sit in her seat all the time, right? Tania's constantly touching people. I'm sure that those kids were probably telling me to stop. And I just kept doing it. You know what I mean? I kept getting in their space because I didn't have spatial awareness. I was just up in there. Doesn't mean I had autism, but it just meant I wasn't really socially aware of what was appropriate, right? The child that comes straight up to your face and, because they're like, I'm going to look at you right now and I'm going to say hello because that's what I'm trained to do, right? It's socially awkward, but they're learning how to do that. So that is one of those commonalities between the two. So I did mention this earlier. Behavior is communication. If there's one thing I want you to take from this today is remember that the behavior is the communication. The behavior is telling you something. All of the behaviors that we do each and every day, it's saying something, right? I mean, if I walk out of here and just roll my eyes and be like, and leave, right? You guys are going to be like, oh, okay, right? You're going to interpret that in a certain way, okay? So whether it's verbal or nonverbal, it's still communication. Okay, so that's just one of my biggest points there. All right, so, yep.
Right down the last
Oh,
thing, I really got my attention there.
hold on, let me get you.
Right there.
Yep,
The important step to helping find alternative and more effective means of communication.
I'll leave it up there, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, I've heard about this book. I'm sure there's several, I don't know, but people on the spectrum are brilliant. I mean, they're just
Many are, yep, many are.
so
Yep,
massively powerful. If I've heard a story of someone who taught an autistic person how their behavior comes across, how it and what a
neurotypical, yeah.
what a non-autistic expect or would be more easily understood. They train themselves how not to how to behave as a non-autistic person.
It takes work. It takes work.
Yeah. And
Yep.
And person has to be open.
Yep,
But there are stories of
100%.
show me what that looked like to outside, so to speak,
Yeah,
and how can I, how can
100%.
that behavior?
And that's what we do as professionals working with individuals is how can I have this person be able to go and function and have a job and order McDonald's, not if people make fun of them, right? But they have to learn. These are skills that have to be taught many times. Quick story, I had a young man that came with us. His mom passed away. And he was probably mildly autistic. And so what I did was like a social story, and I'll share one with you in a minute. It's like a visual kind of book that you read a story to the child, and it tells them the message. So I'm sitting there going, I got to tell this kid that his mom just passed away. I'm a hot mess, right? Because I'm trying to, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I bring him in my office. I'm getting myself grounded, get my little book out, and, page 1, mommy this, mommy is no longer here, and this young man looked up at me and he said, mommy dead?
Right.
Yeah, right. And I said, and inside I'm like, yeah, like I'm about to lose it.
Oh,
Yeah. And he's like, so she's gone. Mommy gone? Forever. I said, yes, mommy's gone. And then he goes, that's great. He goes, what did he say? He said, I saw his facial expression. So he goes, it looked like he was trying to force himself to cry. And that was an example of if somebody was taught, when you are sad, you cry. When you are happy, you laugh. He was literally trying to script himself and go,
oh, well.
and trying to almost force a tear out, but nothing came out. But I could see him doing it. And then he goes, do you have YouTube on your computer?
Yep.
I said, oh, okay. Close the book and we went on. And we're done. Meanwhile, I need help at that point. You know what I mean? I need to go to therapy because I'm like, what just happened here, right? But that's that example, right? Of just the way that the communication is and how the brain interprets that. The brain interpreted it as, okay, yes, I learned, dead, gone, forever. Okay, moving on, right? It was fascinating for me to see that. All right, so let's talk about communication. So here's another indicator that somebody may have a disability. And I know we're running. Okay. Oh, where did it go? Anyway, you're going to see these, all right? These are tablets, but they're also devices, communication devices. So, and I mean, if I could find it because it went away.
Put that signal here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll have to show you guys. But anyway, it has like, so one of our kids is nonverbal, and I'll say, what do you want to eat? Yes. What do you want? I want apple. So the speech therapist will set up an entire palette of different icons, and then the child learns to look at the visual and be able to communicate verbally. So it actually speaks for them. So a lot of kids are using this. Our speech therapists, speech pathologists work specifically with clients and individuals to help them. So this is great. You might see this going up to the restaurant, be like, I want food, cake, things like that. Bathroom. Okay. So this is one of those really good techniques that we do. This is a cheesy one, and I'm sorry I brought this, but this is called a picture exchange communication system. Okay, what it is, it's a collection of icons with words and pictures. Okay, so a lot of classrooms, if you come to our school, will have these up on the board, and you can move them around. So it might say like the schedule for the day. So it might say bathroom break, lunch, playground. So that way Johnny knows, oh, okay, we're going to eat right now, but guess what's coming next? The playground, right? So these are really, really helpful. And I always tell families, if you know people that have the disorders, these are helpful to have these kind of handy in your own homes or in your kind of, even here. If you have certain things that maybe individuals are nonverbal, but you want them to follow certain steps, this is an example to do it. So again, this one's really, really cheesy, but I'm just going to pass it around just so you can get some of the idea of some of the icons. That is just a homemade little one, but again, this could be on a big board. Here are some more examples. So you'll see here underwear up, underwear down. So this is an example of, we're going to teach a kid how to use the bathroom. Okay? So you turn on the light, you put your pants down, you go poo and pee, right? And then you put it in the order so that way it shows them how to do it, right? Because it's teaching them that skill. Things that we just take for granted every day. We get in the shower, we know how to wash our hair, right? Well, we make these for our kids. First, you wet your hair. Then you put the soap, because God forbid you let them go in there, you're going to have a whole, there's going to be stuff everywhere, right? This is what an old school tablet used to look like, but like I said, everybody's got iPads now, so they be walking around with the big iPads. American Sign Language, a lot of our kids know certain things, hello, thank you, hungry, those sorts of things. So again, even here in the church or in your homes and things, sometimes having your basic sign language symbols, yes, no, bathroom, thank you, hello. That way, if you have somebody coming in with that impairment, you can practice some of those skills. So it creates that connection with those individuals.
It was like a birthday party in the grandson, and there was an autistic boy sitting across from me.
Yeah.
His mom had one of them devices she had around her neck.
Nice.
All them icons and that on.
Yep.
You looked off, you just, the boys bottled of water was angry, and they kept trying to drink it. So I got him a bottle of water, and I pushed the lid up for him and couldn't it there, but he was always taking the lid off, sticking his thing back on.
Yeah.
This one little way, and he drank that. His mom was off in the distance. I didn't notice anything with that boy, but she noticed something with him, and she took him and had him touch something on that.
Yep.
I don't know if it was to go to the bathroom or what. She took him off and they came back.
It's perfect.
I was amazed at that.
Yep.
I couldn't even see noticed it across from him.
It's heartwarming because for once they can, again, it's about getting their needs and wants met. If that young lady outside, if we had a picture board with us and we could have pointed to her, like, what do you need right now? And she pointed to the bathroom, we would have not wasted 10, 15 minutes trying to keep putting her clothes on. Okay. This is another little tool that that you guys can look at as an example. These are things that we'll make for different families and kids, and you can pass them around. But parents can have these as handy. So if you don't have an electronic device, because sometimes the electronic device also comes with gaming and YouTube, and then you got that problem. So sometimes just sticking to the pictures and the icons is the way to go. So making them on like keychains is a really good good option. So we'll pass those around, and I'm going to buzz through this little last part here. So just some things, if you do come across individuals, you know, that may, or you're aware that they have autism or ADHD, use visuals. So I would suggest, you know, putting up a couple visuals here, even in the church, I think would be very, very helpful to show things like, you know, like I said, bathroom, water, those sorts of things. Use their name. Make sure instructions are short and clear. So what you don't want to do is, Johnny, what I need you to do is I need you to go to the bathroom. Don't forget to wash your hands. And when you're done washing your hands, I need you to come back. But on your way back, will you tell Mr. Such and Such, you know, hey, you ain't going to get nothing, right? So we do what we call first and then. So we'll say, Johnny, first you go to the bathroom, then we can get a snack. Keeps it very short and succinct. Okay? Avoid using figurative language. They don't oftentimes get it. Sarcasm. Yeah, my dad was sitting with my nephew outside by the fire pit, and he was wearing his Top Gun stunner glasses, and it's nighttime. He doesn't need them, but he's rocking them, and it's night, and we're sitting by the fire, and my dad's like, man, it must look pretty awesome looking through those glasses, man, you know, at nighttime looking at the fire. And he said, no, it's just darker. My dad was like, okay, darker.
Darker.
Yes. Yeah, that was it. Move on. You know, I mean, so they don't, you know, a lot of times those types of things don't kind of connect. And careful with touch and eye contact, because again, that sensory overload. I was walking down the hall with one of my girls, and she's higher functioning verbal, and I said, you did such a great job today. And I put my hand here, and she looked at me, she said, you know, Miss Tanya, you should have asked me before you touched me. Yeah. And I said, thank you. Because she knew how to use communication to tell me that. And I needed to realize that too. So I thought that was really cool. And then just a couple little things too, sensory strategies. So these are pictures of things in our actual school right now. These are tents. They make these on Amazon, small little tents. So if you have a kid that's really uncomfortable in a crowded area, maybe even here at church, you have a little tent in the corner. Hey, they might listen, but they're going to be in the tent. Okay, right? You put some cool chairs out, they might sit and they might listen. Okay, so, and having those fidgets. Okay, here's another example. This is what I share when I train the police officers. Using a mesh bag is really cool because you can throw the whole darn thing in the washing machine. Okay, 5 Below is the best place to go. But have this stuff. Have a little basket out front for the kids that come in. Give them something. If they take it, they draw on it, so what? This stuff's like $1. You know what I mean? Fill it up with little, you know, these are just some examples, so I'll pass that around so you can see those goodies. And then finally, this is a fidget board. Some people have made these. So if you're really creative, you can make these really textural. When I trained the staff at the hospital, the nurses like in the waiting area, I said, put one of these in the corner. Keep it with coloring books, crayons, the fidgets. You're communicating their language when you have this stuff. It makes them feel comfortable. And then here's your mesh bags too, right? Because that way you can just throw them away. And we're not talking about having to spend a tremendous amount of money, right? But just having these things. And then finally, all behaviors communication. There's not one cause. Always be prepared. Have your tangibles, okay? Weighted blankets are great, but you need to be careful with that too, okay? Because a lot of times you should consult with an occupational therapist because a lot of that pertains to the weight of the infant or the child, right? You don't want to put something too heavy and restrict breathing and things like that. Noise canceling, that might be another thing that would be evident. Kids coming in with big old earphones, right? That's just a way of turning down the radio, okay? And again, when you meet one autistic person, you meet one autistic person. So before I go, I do want to hand this out. I'm going to I put together just a few little things, handouts for you guys. And I'm sorry, I did not put the slideshow, but I did put in some information about ADHD. I also gave an example of what I was talking about, the social story, which is basically using pictures and words. This is an example of going to the doctor. So we'll use this with our kids to prepare them to go to the doctor. You can make ones about if they have to get a shot, right? So you can do anything. And then I also put a really, really cool ways to support children and adults with autism. So it'll come up with different scenarios and some different strategies that you can use. And this might be very helpful for you too, ma'am, based on what we talked about earlier. So I have one each for a folder that you guys can each take as well. And I think that is, and I also have my card here if anybody is interested in having further conversations, coming and touring or whatever. But yeah, and I'm sorry I rushed that last part because I was like, oh, I gotta make sure we stay in time. Yes, sir.
Tanya, we have a website, and if it's okay, we are obviously video recording your session today. We would like to put that on YouTube for other people. Also, you have your PowerPoint. Again, we want to put information
Sure.
on the website. You know, we
Absolutely.
have, you know, from
Mm-hmm.
in the services.
I love it.
So, you know, we would also put information to help people on our website as far as just general information.
Absolutely.
So,
I have no problem doing that at all. And just to consult, if somebody needs to reach out to me, I'll put my cards up here too. You know, just to even talk questions. You know, it's a team. I'm a licensed social worker, but I work with behavioral analysts that really do a lot of the deep work with this population. So I can get you answers.
question, we have a grandson that when we play cards with him and he gets a good hand, he can't really sit still. And I think he has been diagnosed with ADHD. But I think also he's on some medication. I know
Okay.
you haven't talked anything about medication, but the medication's not a cure-all.
No.
It certainly may help. Any comments on medication? Not that you're
Yep.
trying to
No, yeah.
tell people what to medicate with.
Yeah.
Family members.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge go out and get the meds, right? I mean, but at the end of the day, medication serves a purpose, okay? If you have a tremendous headache, right? There are some self-soothing things that you can do, use an ice pack, heating pad. There are some things that you can do, but man, doesn't some Tylenol help a little bit too, right? So I think it is a resource. I think in many cases it is very, very helpful. All jokes aside, I probably would not have seen as many bathrooms in restaurants with my mom and dad, because I could get in trouble at the restaurants. I probably wouldn't have had that many discipline moments had I been, maybe medicated or managed a little bit, because I just couldn't keep myself under control. So there is a time and a place for it. Like I said, any medical condition, there are medications for it, right? So it's no different than this. It's a condition as well.
Now, this Grafton,
Yeah. So, yep. Our community-based program, we have a psychiatrist that is mobile. So he's out of Ohio, but so he meets with our kids over the Zoom, and he does prescribe medications. But some of our kids that live out in the community, they go to like Northwestern, their local community services board, where psychiatrists will prescribe the medication. And I will recommend to steer from a family physician and go straight to a psychiatrist, because a family physician is great. They have general knowledge, but a psychiatrist, that is their specialty. They're going to get you in the right direction more so than your family doctor would.
I'd like to challenge that.
okay.
I have a family doctor with a special interest in mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think most primary care physicians, whether they're pediatricians, family physicians, or otherwise, have a good handle on ADHD.
Okay. That is wonderful to hear.
Not the case with autism. But one of the saddest things that I saw in practice was parents would not allow the use of these medicines are some of the most free from side effects,
Yes.
no long-term side effects, and literally unlike any other medicine that is. With the first dose, you
Get
get
it?
improvement.
Yep.
While I'm a big fan of the psychological aspects that always troubled me when parents were resistant to therapy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And thank you for that feedback. And, I will say it is a challenge because all treatment needs to be followed through. So even in addition to the medication, there are times where, some of the strategies and things that we've talked about today that we've tried to implement and provide for families to take home and to practice these things at home. When they're not practiced, they're not going to see the results. And the sad thing is a lot of families are just hoping that they wake up one morning and their child doesn't have autism anymore. Or, a little spanking's going to fix ADHD.
That definitely with autism, the biggest part is the counseling and providing the environment and all of that.
And training.
But again, I had problems with some parents of autistic children who have aggressive behaviors, and without treating that with medicine, they could not strike.
Yeah.
Or they could, they might, it might keep them from an inpatient thing.
100%, yes. Or hurting themselves or hurting someone else.
And the other thing with autism, as you pointed out, very frequently there are other mental health disorders like anxiety,
Yep.
depression, bipolar, that can be treated independent
Of the autism. Absolutely.
with this mental health problem. It's really important that the children and the family get treatment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you always have to rule out bipolar.
Good. Yep. Oh, yeah, because a lot of the parents will come and be fix my kid. No. A lot of the reason why, like, I can walk into a house and within 20 minutes, I'm like, oh, a lot of the things come into place, right? Because environmental factors, situations, physical abuse, neglect, all the things you just referenced, those are all factors that play a role into why you are seeing the presentation that you're seeing. So yes, it is absolutely critical that everybody be involved because it's a huge puzzle piece. We can do all the work with your child while we have them, but I can't tell you how many times they go home for a week and they come back and it's like we're starting all over again. Oh, so you just let him do everything that he was doing before. You held no boundaries, you had no structure, you had no consistency. So now you brought him back early because he started attacking you. And now he's got to come back to us and we've got to start back. And the one thing we do is we put in the system, we put in the schedule, the routines, all of those things that have to be into play. So, yeah, good luck with that.
Tania, what are some of the costs for at least, like, say, early identification, testing, if you will? Obviously, there's insurance.
Yeah.
But roughly what are some of the costs for some of the different services?
Honestly, I really don't know. Independent providers can kind of come up with their own charging, right? Like, therapists nowadays, I don't even know where it's at, but some people are charging like $200 an hour. So insurance is going to be the key, or going to your local community services board to get funding.
Of the services that Grafton offers, do you do early identification testing, if you will?
We do not. No, we don't do the testing. We don't have, typically psychologists will do a lot of the testing that we're referring to right now, or outside psychiatrists. So we don't do those general assessments. We do review cases and determine whether or not they meet criteria to come into our program. So with that being said, we will ensure that they do have an active diagnosis, they do have an active IQ score, those sorts of things. So we will be looking at that, but we don't necessarily conduct those assessments. Whereas like Northwestern, some of the outpatient facilities and things like that, they may do more of those kind of assessing.
Valley Health.
Valley Health, yes. Yep. Yes, sir?
Yep, my oldest son's 26. He was diagnosed with Asperger's,
Okay.
and it was a long road. He was diagnosed in 10 years, and he's doing very well. He has a full-time job. He lives on
Yep.
down in Northern Virginia.
Awesome.
But I wonder, in Grafton, do you see a lot of that and treat a lot of that?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about Asperger's is just basically high functioning autism. So, yep, there's something called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. I'm sure you know the DSM. That over the years gets translated, and it gets adjusted and revised. The most recent revision of how to diagnose all disorders has basically removed things like Asperger's, and they just put it all under one autism spectrum disorder. So now there's only that one diagnosis, and then they have it subcategorized like severe, those sorts of things. But Asperger's is just really those individuals that have some of those characteristics and traits, but the ability for them to learn and be trained and pick up on some of those strategies and things is way easier than it would be for somebody lower.
Piggyback on what Dr. Andy was saying, he also has pretty severe OCD. So,
Yeah.
like I said, a long road, because between the Asperger's and the OCD,
Yeah.
it's quite a combination.
And OCD can gets a little tricky too, because individuals with autism or Asperger's, right, they do have kind of OCD-like traits, right? We talked about like lining things up, those ritualistic, obsessive thinking, and not to get too technical, and I'm definitely not a doctor here, but the diagnostic criteria for OCD versus autism, there are some variations there. So I always like to say that, the behaviors that you'll see with autism are typically, like I said, ritualistic behavior, obsessive thought patterns, things like that. And I try to steer clear of saying that they also have OCD, unless they've been diagnosed by a medical doctor that they've met that criteria. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like another comment you touched on, but I would like to say more about is how often ADHD is delayed in diagnosis till adolescence and
Yep.
even in adults. And fortunately, with psychology and with pharmacology, these people's lives can be dramatically changed, both
100%.
in academic performance and in terms of occupational performance.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I was diagnosed in college, and it was when I went to my master's program. I could not, I just started breaking down, and I had managed up into this point and just made it by. But as soon as I went and got that diagnosis, and I was treated at that time with medication, I was able to excel academically, and I was able to, graduate school became like, it was like this whole new world. I'm like, oh my God, this has been here all my life, and I didn't know, right? But it's funny, because I had gone that long, I still kind of have some of those pieces of like, I could do it myself. You know what I mean? I think we all kind of have that component. But you're absolutely right. It opens up a whole new world of opportunity. Yeah. Yep.
I didn't have ADHD as a child, but he didn't really diagnose it back then.
Yeah.
I was considered a bad kid.
Yep.
And I was treated like a bad kid. As an adult, I started taking medication for ADHD, and it's kind of like not seeing well, and then you get a pair of glasses and you say, I didn't realize trees had leaves.
Perfect. Yep. And that's what the doctor was saying too, just a little bit ago, right? Like, these kids are suffering. They're getting in trouble every single day. They're getting mocked and ridiculed, by their peers at school. They're getting kicked out of school, and all because there's an underlying condition that's not being treated, that's not being cared for. So yeah, it's.
I used to, whenever I could get friction with somebody, it made me feel good. So I would take my brother sitting next to me in the car, and I would elbow him real hard. My dad looked in the rearview mirror, see what's going on, just in time to see my brother hit me, then he would get in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, that's the best. Oh, I know. I have two brothers. I know all about that. But isn't that funny how you sought out that sensory piece, right? So that was what we're talking about. So when we talk about the differences, right, with ADHD, sometimes ADHD will look for that. They yearn for that sensory piece. But then on the autistic side, right, that might be extremely uncomfortable, right? Don't touch me. Take the tags off my clothes, right? Certain fabrics and things like that. So that's such a great example. And I love the eyeglass situation too.
You had a testimony on medication. I I dropped out of school. I was conduct disorder, looking at rehab.
Yeah.
And Dr. White put me on Ritalin. It worked for a little bit, but then what did we go to?
Yeah.
And
Or medicines.
Adderall, longer.
well, I was in rehab. I was in a year at the lockdown facility. And I did 2.5 years of high school, read 90 books, and did 4 college classes in 9 months.
I'm sorry. That's amazing. That is amazing.
But no,
That's amazing.
I was 17.
Yeah.
Got in a lot of trouble. Dennis knows about it.
That is fantastic.
That was
But that just shows. I mean, it just shows the the power of intervention and connection with resources and the will too. And it sounds like Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. We that's a given. Yeah. The handcuffs help too, right? Yeah.
Later on, I knew that I really did want to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
When Paul came to me, he was pretty easy to diagnose.
Oh, Paul.
He's pretty sure as a kid. Oh.
But are we ready to include even the question?
Oh, I'm bring it on.
Okay.
What's available is a community for children with autism, particularly if they're being served in the public school and they're being accommodated in the public school, but as soon as
Not enough.
community they want to play sports like young kids their age, just don't have anything available to us to do that.
There's not enough. I mean, the reality is because people don't know how to work with that population. I will say one thing that is exciting is there's something called the Superb League, SUPURB. Okay, so Grafton, we do that with Chris Rohn, who works at Unique Hoops. So you know him?
I work with Chris.
Oh, well, tell him I presented today.
Yeah.
Oh, you filmed me. Oh yeah. I was there in the gym. That was me. I was the one with the Superb. I did the whole thing with the Superb and Sam Butler, the other gentleman. I knew I remembered you too. Okay. So yeah, he's actually expanding that program and he's using it with Timber Ridge, which is another program. He's bringing, adolescents, troubled youth, kids with mental health. I mean, our kids that are autistic, some of them are nonverbal, they play basketball now. And it is the coolest thing ever. And they learn how to dribble. And they might run and try to put the ball in the other basket, and we're all like, no, this way, But they get the experience that any other child should have, which is I get to go learn how to play basketball. So that is one example, but I wish that there were more things out in the community to do. There's mentor programs. Sometimes mentors can go out.
Yeah. Special Olympics.
Oh, the Special Olympics, yes, ma'am.
Stuff here. I know it's bowling and basketball and some other things here in Frederick County. You can go to other counties to do Special Olympics, but I know like Martin's, I think it's Tuesdays, there's a certain hour time that it's sensory free. There's several stores.
Oh, yeah.
The lights are a little lower, the music's down a lot, that kind of thing. There are a few
Yeah.
stores, but you have to look where it's on. They're usually posted on their doors, but if you're not,
Yeah.
but there are.
It's becoming more and more popular because we're becoming more and more aware. And I think the more aware that we are, like I said, I challenge or I encourage you guys to put up visuals and things here, right? You'll start to see a lot more of those. So that's communication for that population.
What the YDC, do they have any program?
I'm not familiar with that. I don't know. Yeah. I'm saying not familiar with what programs they do offer. Yeah. But definitely worth looking into and, spreading the word, because the more that we can acclimate individuals in the community and, normalize things, right, the better everybody's going to be.
Two other quick comments.
Absolutely. No, please.
One of the things that helped me most to understand engaged people is understanding that they don't have the filter. And they're bombarded with things that, so many things that confuse them. And the second thing is, I'm so thankful that now we understand with neuroplasticity
Yep.
that you're never too old to have new neurons formed and new synapses, unless, of course, you have dementia.
Yes. Or traumatic TBI or something. Traumatic. Yep.
More hope for mental illness.
Uh-huh.
You really can't change your brain circuits.
Yep. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. And that's what a lot of therapy is too. Is really helping change that. Yep.
We can do PET scans of the brain.
Yep.
And actually watch how therapy.
Yep. Yeah. Depressive brains, you see like there's a lack of action, like the brain's not snapping, and then you have people going through different treatments and things, and then the brain scan shows, oh my God, look at it's bright and alive, everything's moving and snapping correctly, and so that's, science is amazing. I mean, I think we're just going to continue going in the right direction, and I'm super excited by it. Yep. Gotcha.
I taught with public education, so I'm familiar with the IEP process. And I mean, it's one of those situations where knowledge is power. The more you go in there,
And who you know. Yeah.
the better things are really go through.
Yes.
And are there any advocates in this area that work with families just to kind of help them with the process and kind of how they can
So
experience that they cannot?
I will have to get back to you on that. There is a couple of individuals that I know that we have utilized before. One of my coworkers that's been in Grafton for 38 years, he's a case manager. He's phenomenal. He knows everybody in the world. He's reached out to a couple of people that have helped be that voice for the family, because the IEP process can be very, very challenging and very overwhelming. And you have to have a powerful voice. And that's why I said, as parents, you have a right to education, and at any point in time, you can reconvene that team together and say, I demand that we have a discussion about this because my child is not excelling in school, and I demand that we get something out of this. Some people have brought attorneys in, or a GAL, guardian ad litems and things like that. They will also be involved sometimes in the IEP meetings just to help and support the families to be that voice and to exercise and get those needs met. Because there are some IEP teams that are just, they're a challenge because they want to keep it in-house. And it's money. There's money involved too, right? If you got to send somebody out, they're going to have to, it's not cheap.
There's a lot of legal things that you just have to go through to get what you want. And
Yeah.
if you have an advocate with you, they can kind of guide you in a direction.
Yes. So,
The things to say and the things to do that might.
Yeah, but attorneys are often involved in that. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get railroaded. They're going to go right over your head. And then a lot of families just give up. Forget it, I don't care. And they try to manage it themselves, or they'll go, well, I'll homeschool. And unless you're really prepared to homeschool, that may not be the best route either, because you're losing some of the other components of being in school.
Should we throw away our bottles of Tylenol?
You're so funny.
That's sad. We're going to step away
Yes.
from any controversy.
Yes, absolutely. I knew somebody was going to say that. That would have been great if I put up when I said what causes it and just put up the Tylenol. Like, all right, so we're good. I'll leave now.
Now that I have your attention.
Yes.
Hey, let's give Tania a round.
Thank you.
There is no.
Thank you. And thank you guys. You made it pleasurable today, and it was just wonderful getting to know everybody. Thank you.
I learned a lot more. It helps me
I hope so.
understand, and something I've been focusing on, and we do in the support groups and the informational seminars, I think is a Walt Whitman quote, but Ted Lasso kind of made it popular recently. Be curious, not judgmental.
Yes.
And the more I learn, the more I am able to be curious and not judgmental. Which, if we really tie it to the ministry, you can back up because the original author said, "Love one another as I loved you,"
Yeah.
and that's really the ultimate source of be curious and not judgmental. So,
And judge not, and you shall not be judged. Right, Tania?
right,
Lest we forget.
right.
Oh my gosh, we're throwing these out. So I love seek to understand, not to be understood. Amen. Right? So it's just all about like, yep, same. Is it St. Francis? I love it.
The wisdom of the world. It's supernatural origins. Go figure. We can take this discussion offline, and please enjoy snacks. I want everybody to take home everything that we've got in the back for you. But thanks for coming out. A few things. We have a November seminar on November 15th. We're going to be talking about bipolar disorder.
Awesome.
Who's giving? Is that Fred? Are you giving that talk?
Awesome.
Fred's giving that talk. We do our support group meetings on the first and third Thursdays of every month from 5:30 to 7 p.m. right here in the hospitality room of Fellowship Bible Church. A neat thing that we do there is Claudio's Pizza offers a 20% discount to anybody that wants to put in an order ahead of time, and we have coordination to help bring those orders in. Just send that order to ynamforyou@gmail.com, and we hope that you'll come on November 6th and November 20th. We're still working through our Holding to Hope support group workbook. It's been great. We have resources out there if you want to check them out and give us suggestions.
Yep.
You're Not Alone Ministry.org, and it's your like YOURE, no apostrophe because that doesn't work on websites. You're Not Alone Ministry.org. We have a Facebook group.
I just joined it this morning. I joined it this morning, so I was like, okay, let me check this out.
We keep that private just for people. We
Yeah.
have a little entry
I like it,
requirement.
though, yeah.
Just click the button and that's it. You know, it's growing. It's good. And then we'll take our YouTube recordings and upload them to the channel, which is searchable under the same name. Go figure. So those resources are all there for people to click on. And in the back, most of you know this because you've been here before, but this is for people who are watching and might want to come out. We have a resource table at the back of the room with everything that we've learned along the entire spectrum of mental health support and education that we can find so far. So we're just
Awesome.
grateful.
Yes.
Let's close us in prayer because that kind of caps and is the foundation of everything we do here. Thank you, Lord, for this gathering. Thank you for causing Tania to be here today and give us these words of wisdom and all of this new learning, because it helps us to love others better and understand them more, and we feel so much more equipped in this area. So thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.